Gambone. She's a longtime journalist, experienced press release writer, and will share valuable tips for authors on how to write a professional and attention-getting press release. Over her 20-year career as a freelance journalist, LJ has written countless newspaper and magazine articles in the area of entertainment, human interest, lifestyle, and natural health. Her stories have appeared in the Victor Valley Daily Press, Los Angeles Daily News, Pasadena Star News, San Bernardino Sun, San Gabriel Valley Tribune, Redlands Magazine, Riverside Magazine, and Living Light News. Some of LJ's most notable features and interviews include celebrities such as Ray Charles, Naomi Judd, John Bon Jovi, Loretta Lynn, Glenn Campbell, Wayne Newton, Three Doors Down, Will Ferrell, Jewel, Paul Anka, George Jones, Trisha Yearwood, Styx, Bob Newhart, and Randy Travis, to name a few. I know. Along with her journalism career, the Apple Valley resident is also the author of 2 books, One with the Dream and The Dawning, Exploring the Divine Plan for the Emerging Age of Aquarius. Please welcome me in joining and bringing LJ up. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So happy to be here today. We finally are starting to be able to see the sky again, so that's nice. I hope that keeps up. Well, I was so excited when Bob called me and asked me to speak today because I love talking about press releases and I love helping authors sort of sort that out because in my experience, a lot of times people write a book and then they're kind of lost as far as the marketing. So before I kind of dive into everything today, I wanted to read you a little article that I wrote that'll kind of set up today what we're going to be talking about. It's called Chicken Little and the Pointless Press Release. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. The last thing any author wants to be known as is the Chicken Little of the literary world. Well, that's exactly the kind of reputation a person gets when he or she sends out news that isn't news at all. That's not to say they are purposely trying to deceive anyone. It's typically a case of getting carried away with the thrill of their wonderful, new, fantastic, and spellbinding book. Look, most authors I know seem to have one thing in common. They want to reach the masses with their message. Whether it be to impart wisdom, uplift and encourage, or simply entertain. And that's a wonderful goal because what we have to say often does have the power to move hearts, inspire, and change lives. While that may be something to get excited about, it doesn't necessarily qualify as news. Countless authors release books every day hoping that their messages will catch on with the masses. After all, if their work can't be shared, what's the point? Well, the point is that if an author is looking to promote their book on a grand scale, there has to be a compelling story behind it. In other words, it's all about the spin. Perhaps your book just won a special award, or you're going to donate all the proceeds or some of the proceeds to charity that ties in with your subject matter. These are the types of accomplishments that the media would be interested in. Also, another thing to remember is that when you release your news, it has to be a done deal. You may have several opportunities in the works, but unless they are finalized, sending out a press release would be totally inappropriate and useless. From a personal standpoint, your writings will always have merit. And who knows, with a lot of effort and persistence, you may wind up with a bestseller. So determine your goals and work hard to make them happen. When they do, that will be the right time to let the world know that you, not Chicken Little, has arrived. So I want to start out by just getting into the real basic concepts behind a press release and the elements that go into writing a great press release and then getting it out to the media. I'm going to use the press release as an example today that I wrote for my book. This is The Dawning. So my subject matter of my book is It's called This is the Dawning, Exploring the Divine Plan for the Emerging Age of Aquarius. And the subject matter is that the ages of humanity correspond with the zodiac wheel. So this points to things happening in the world according to the energies within the ages. And a lot of the book points to scripture to back up my points. So whenever I give a talk on this topic, people are always blown away because they've never really heard this before. It's not something that people generally write about. So for me, it's one of those things that it does kind of blow your mind. So that is what I used for the hook of my press release. So the title is Author Shares Mind-Blowing Details About the Age of Aquarius in Fascinating New Book. So the hook isn't the title of the book per se, but it's the spin that you put on it, what you pull out of it that makes it really fascinating. Can somebody give me the title of a book that they wrote recently?
Someone, Lorelai, tell me the title of your book. From Mormon to Mermaid.
Okay, that's intriguing. So what is the book about?
One woman's journey from oppression to freedom.
Okay, so she was in like this cult, and then she got out of the cult. So when you say the name of your book, From Mormon to Mermaid, it sounds, oh, that's interesting, but I don't really know what it's about necessarily. So when you send out your press release, you want to pull something out of it. Was it a harrowing escape? You know, I don't know the story behind it, but something that's going to take the reader's attention and go, oh wow, this woman had death-defying, that kind of a thing. So whatever it is that is the exciting or the compelling aspect of your book, that's what you want to use in the title of your press release. So, does anybody have another book title?
Bugs in the Baptismal.
Okay, so that's another really good title. Do you guys teach each other how to write titles for books? Because those are really good. So what is about?
It's short stories, Faith and Folly. That covers full books.
Faith and Folly.
Faith and Folly.
Explain.
Stories of faith and folly. Well, I wrote a book called I Lift My Eyes, and it was all stories of faith. Short vignettes, and with scripture by each one. And I wanted to write one that had some fun stories that didn't all have scripture in it. So that's all. It's just a follow-up to the other book.
And the stories are about?
Not very exciting. All personal, true stories of events that happened.
Just to you personally, yeah.
And yes, and you're looking at me funny, but I have been very.
No, I mean, I think the title is really intriguing, but so you might want to use words like hilarious.
Well, I don't know.
Or you know, what?
Skydiving to practice, and it's very funny, you know, going skydiving, different kinds of things.
Right.
And the title came from an actual event with Dale Evans, so that's explained in there.
Well, that's a hook right there, because when you have a celebrity tied into your book, then you want to use that person's name in your title. And especially when you're talking about online, because all the search engines pick up the names of the famous people when they crawl. So you can use that in your book, new book highlights, you know, fascinating story with Dale Evans or whatever. So you pull out the thing that's going to get the most attention. So I recommend a book by Joe Vitale. It's called Hypnotic Writing. And one of the things that he does in the book is he talks about words that you can use that will get attention. He's got a whole list of them. And it's really a good book because he has you do an exercise of writing, say, an email, and then the subject matter in the email that would grab people to make them read it. Because, you know, we get tons of emails all the time, and most of them you just click out of. But with what he's saying is that you can really get people to respond if you have the right words. So that's what's so important about this. Now, once you get your headline and you have your hook, then the next aspect of it is you want to sort of start reeling the reader in with your first paragraph. So, for instance, on mine, it says the age of Aquarius. Is it real or just some colorful fantasy that was born out of the 1960s Fifth Dimension song with the same title? So right away, I provoke, this is the dawn, so it gets them kind of pulled into the story here. So whatever your book is about, that's what you want to think when you're writing that first line. How am I going to reel them in and make them really want to keep reading what my book is all about? This is very important. Now, I asked the question, and you can do that. That's a very effective way to get people to keep reading. The other thing that you can do is put something in there that's timely in the news that they're already thinking about, or it's already on their mind because it happens to be on Google all the time or something. You can shock them. Say something really, whoa. You can make them laugh, say something humorous or kind of goofy. Or by the same token, you can make them cry. You want to say something so poignant. So these are just examples of things you can do to really reel the reader in on what they're going to be reading about next. Well, and then the next step would be the content of the press release. And this is where you're going to expand on it. And basically you're going to talk about 2 or 3 really key points in your book. And you don't want to go more than maybe 3-4 paragraphs on this. Sometimes I get press releases and they're just so long. And I don't want to know the whole book. I just want to have enough to sort of tease me and make me interested enough to want to maybe write about it. So keep that in mind. So for instance, with my press release, this is the second paragraph after the hook, after the reel in. It's, according to author Luann Hunt, a new age where peace, harmony, and understanding among all people will indeed become a reality. She tackles this subject in her fascinating and eye-opening new book, This is the Dawning, Exploring the Divine Plan for the Emerging Age of Aquarius. Along with offering a crash course in astrology, Hunt's book sheds light on how God's awe-inspiring plan for humanity is written in the stars and also corresponds with the zodiac wheel. So that tells you right there what the book is about. You know immediately what I'm talking about in the book. And this is so important because I can't tell you how many times people send me stuff they want me to write about. And I read it and I'm like, I don't know what this is about. So it's important to get clear and concise about your subject matter. Journalists, the media, they don't have a lot of time. So they just want that 30-second elevator pitch, so to speak, to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to write about it. So also in the content, what's really, really important are quotes. And those quotes can either be from yourself or also somebody that's endorsed your book. A celebrity maybe, somebody that also is an expert in the field. Whatever works with your book. I like to add at least one personal quote because if you put something there that's heartfelt and really is meaningful, that says a lot. And also it tells the media person, this is where this person's motive is, this is where their heart is, and I think it's very important. So for my quote here, it says, I am beyond excited to bring this information to the general public. Most people have no idea that the story of man is written in the stars, especially where the ages of time are concerned. When they find out, it gives them a brand new understanding of why we're here and how we all play a significant part in the grand design of life. So think about this, because also, when speaking of quotes, when I speak to people on the phone, if I'm going to write about their book, I'm always trying to get the great quotes, because I always think the story is only as good as the quotes that I get. So thinking about quotes not just for your press release, but also for when you're interviewed by the media is a really, really good idea. You want to be prepared in that way and really be able to be eloquent about what your book is about and what is behind it, why you wrote it, that sort of thing. So you can practice that by just start writing out quotes that you might say or you might give to the media. Just take a look at them, refine them, and you don't have to be verbatim with them, but at least have an idea about what you're going to actually say. Because remember, somebody's going to be reading this story. So they really want to get a window into you. And if you just give, say, real pat quotes or real shallow quotes, it's not too exciting. And we get a lot of those. So, yes, the quotes are so, so important. So after you get your content, at the bottom of your press release, you're gonna wrap everything up after you add your quotes and just have maybe a short little ending to it. I'm trying to find where the other part of mine is. Here it is. So I actually ended my press release with a quote. Now that I've reconnected with my study of the stars, I see how this is knowledge that every human being should have. Astrology is most definitely of God and something He uses to speak to us in every moment of our existence. So that was my ending sentence, and then it says grab a copy of This is the Dawning and then I have where you can get it. So make sure that you are really clear on where you can get the book. And usually it's Amazon and Barnes & Noble and those type of places, or on a website that you have. And also include the price of the book in the press release. And where you put that is at the very beginning in the opening sentence when you mention the title of the book. In parentheses, you'll put like 1999 and then the name of the publisher. And then just put that in parentheses next to the title. So on the format front, I have a header on my press release that has my name, my office number, my mobile number, and my email address at the top, and also the name of my company. Now, if you don't have a company, it's no big deal, but you do want to put your information at the top of the release. I get them sometimes and it's at the bottom of the release, and I don't know why people started doing that, but I really, as a journalist, prefer that the information be at the top. So, and you can even put your physical address, whatever you want, but just make sure that they have a way to get in touch with you and that they can see it right away. Okay, now I want to talk about the sticky side of press releases, and that is the distribution. Have any of you looked into distribution or sent out press releases?
Yes.
Okay, well, you probably know then that there's services that will send them out for you. You can send them out yourself, which I don't really recommend, but there's all sorts of services that you can use online that for a fee, they'll send out your release. One rule of thumb, if you're serious about getting your book in front of the media and in front of audience who might want to purchase it, do not use the free press release thing. Because basically when you put out a free press release on these services, it's going to sit stagnant on their own site, and that's all that's going to happen with it. So yeah, it's on the web, but it's only in that one site, and then it'll just, after a month or so, it'll just drop off into oblivion. So I've heard people say, oh, you can send out a press release for free. Well, yes and no. You can put it up online for free, but they're not going to send it anywhere. So the packages that they usually have range between $40 and maybe $400. I don't recommend spending $400 to send out a press release, but $40 isn't going to get you very far either. The legitimate ones that are going to give you the most bang for your buck, they run between $150 and $250 for a release. And one of the things that those sites do is send it to Google News, which is great because then it goes on all the search engines through Google News. So that's a pretty good amount of exposure. Some of them also will send it to the AP Wire. That is the best that you could ask for, to go to the AP Wire. And you are going to pay a little bit more for that. But back to what I was saying about your hook. It can go to the AP Wire, but if you don't have a good hook on your release, it doesn't matter. It's not going to get read. So you have to think about, hey, these newspapers and media are getting thousands and thousands of press releases. How can mine stand out? So if you're going to spend the money to put it out there, then you want to make sure that you've got a really solid story to tell and that it's expressed properly so that when someone sees that first line, they go, whoa. Because your book and her book were just, the titles are phenomenal. It makes you want to read them. So yes, I think with those titles, you have an excellent chance of getting picked up by a lot of media, but you just have to put the right spin on it and be real clear about what you're saying. So, yes, there must be hundreds of sites that will send out the releases for you. There's one I like, it's called 24/7 Press Release. They do an excellent job. They're pretty reasonable. They have good stats. And I've noticed that when I send a press release through them, that I'll go in a couple days later on Google and type the title of the release, and pages of it come up in Google. So I really, really recommend them. They're great. There's some other ones that are decent, but there's one called 1888 Press Release, and they're pretty good too. And I think they're competitive in their price with 24/7 Press Release. And there are some that'll charge you, like I said, $400 or $500 to send out a press release, and they'll send it to the AP Wire. But it just seems cost prohibitive to do that. So I would definitely recommend staying below the $250 range for it. So once your press release is out there in the media, and if you start getting some response from it, then you're going to want to be able to be ready if they call you for an interview or something. And you want to have all your ducks in a row. Like I was saying earlier, what are they going to ask me? What am I going to say? I'm only maybe going to get 15 minutes on the phone, so I want to be able to be real succinct about what I'm talking about. I don't want to ramble on. Want to give them good quotes. So really prepare yourself for that. And when it comes to the local media, because I can tell you this right now with the Daily Press, we'll pretty much write about any book that comes across our desk, right? So don't be afraid to send it to local media. And then there's also all the papers down the hill, like the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin and the San Bernardino Sun, and you're still considered local to those publications. And I used to write for the San Gabriel Valley Tribune, and I remember my editor there, the features editor, she used to get books like crazy. People would actually physically send her books. And remember, she would have them piled up to the ceiling, and oftentimes if I was in there, I would go through the pile and just look and see what books looked interesting that I could write about. But I noticed at the Daily Press, do we get books? Because I never get any books. Yeah, so I don't know if people just aren't sending them out anymore or not. I don't know if you guys have tried that, just sending a book. It's worth it to send. Keep 10 copies of your book that you get printed just for media, local media, and send those books out with a nice letter, and also something I highly recommend, and that's a promotional product. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be as simple as the bookmarks that I gave you. It could be a mug with your book on it. Mugs are really inexpensive to get printed up. And if you put the cover of your book on the mug and you send it to somebody at the newspaper, the chances are that they're going to go, oh, I can now have a mug for my coffee and I don't have to go use the styrofoam cups. So they'll start using your mug. So I love mugs. One guy that I did some PR for, he wrote this book called Fat Chance. And it was one of those sort of adult fairy tale type of things. It was this really risque little book, but it was cute. But it was about this kingdom, and there was the Chebolians or something, and they were these real heavy-set people, and then they were warring against these thin people. It was a crazy little book. But anyway, he had the idea to, because they were the Chebolians were always eating candy in the book. So he had this idea to print up lollipops with the name of his book, Fat Chance, on the lollipops. And that was really cute, and it's effective. So you can think of something unique with your book that people go, oh, how cute, So think about that, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. I don't think the lollipops cost him very much. If you wanted to just print up a few mugs for the media, you can, for like maybe $5 a piece, you can get 10 mugs, $50, $75, and you'll have 10 of them. So yeah, it's worth it. I'm also a recording artist, and I put out a lot of music and promote a lot of my music. And I have spent a lot of money on promotion, and a lot of the other independent recording artists I know, they'll spend all their money on their albums, but then they don't have any money left to spend on their promotion. And it goes the same with authors or whatever. It's like, you're going to spend a lot of money printing up those books, right? So you want to make sure that you actually have a budget for promotion, unless you don't care about making any money or selling them. That's different if you just did it for fun. But if you really want to sell them and get some attention, you have to have a promotional budget. And that includes, obviously, press releases. And you might have to send out more than just one. You might send out one when you first release it, and then wait a couple months, come up with a little bit of a different title, and send out another one. Maybe use a different press release service, but kind of keep the momentum going on that. The other thing when you're dealing with the media is you can call them up and just ask them for a review of your book. We don't really review books, but we would, right? We would. But I know at the Tribune we used to review them, and those Lang papers always reviewed books. There was a special section for it. And reviews are important, very, very important, because if you have one or two really good reviews, that's something you can use in your press kit. And then when other media read it, they say, oh, this paper endorsed it, or that paper. And it just helps with the momentum to get reviews. And I know that if you just go online and you type in Google, get my book reviewed or something, there's all kind of sites. And some sites you can even pay them to review it. So I can't stress the importance of collecting reviews. And I do that with my music all the time. And it goes a long way. It really does. So yes, if you have a book and you want to send it to the Daily Press, send it. We're happy to look at it. We're happy to write something and give you maybe a review, right? So the next thing is, this is kind of a little bit off the beaten path of press releases, but I wanted to cover it today because it's going to help you with your promotion. Unfortunately, there's a few, but there's not many bookstores anymore. They're kind of dying out. And there was a time it was great because if you wrote a book, you could just go on a little local tour at all the Barnes and Nobles or wherever, but they're so few and far between. But there is something that has taken its place, which is actually a lot better, I think, because you don't have to go out and physically trudge around with your books and sitting around and everything. This is just such a nice way to promote, and it's a type of tour called a podcast tour. And you all know what a podcast is. It's a little radio show, and there's countless podcasts out there. And what you can do is you can pitch yourself and your book to these podcasts and maybe do 4 or 5 of them a month for as long as you want to. There's a lot of them, believe me. And they'll have you on, and usually they last between 30 minutes to some last 2 hours, which is kind of weird. But the ones that are advertising for guests will always put in their advertisement exactly what they're looking for, what the subject matters are, things like that. There's a site, and you should write this down, but it's called radioguestlist.com. And you can actually go on there and look up on their listings podcasts that are searching for guests. And they'll usually have them, they change them over like every 10 days. But you also can sign up for their email service. I think it's like $5 a month, and they'll send you all the listings that they get whenever they get them. So I get an email from them maybe twice a week with all the new podcasts looking for guests. They give you the demographics, they give you all the contact information to get a hold of the producer, everything you need, so it's perfect. Again, you'll increase your chances of getting on if you've got that powerful hook. And if you're targeting your pitches, so you want to make sure you don't send it out to a show that's not really looking for your kind of thing. But they're very specific about what they want. And speaking of podcasts, I also have a podcast. It's called Luann's Land, and I have authors on and celebrities and also musicians. And we publish it on the Daily Press website. So I think all of you have gotten my bookmark, and if not, I have some over at the table, but you can contact me at my website, or there's a phone number on there you can give me a call at, and let me know that you have a book, and then I'll get with you and we can talk about a time to be on the podcast. I would love to have all of you on if you have books, and it's great, and we just talk about your book and chat. It's really nice, and then I'll write a print article. So what we're doing is we have the print article, and then we embed the podcast in the print article. So if you go onto the Daily Press website and you just type in the search engine Luann's Land, it'll bring up some of the ones that I've done here. We just launched it a few weeks ago, so you can search and you'll pull up the recent ones that I've done. But it's kind of a nice thing, and for me it's great because I can help local authors even more because, you know, in a story, maybe I can put 2 or 3 of your quotes, but on the podcast, we can really get into the heart and soul of your book. So, yeah, reach out to me on that. Okay, I know we're going to break soon, right? Okay, because I wanted to save ample time for Q&A, but,
We're good right now.
okay. So I wanted to sort of leave you with some advice about your press release and how you should keep control of what you send out. How many of you guys have used a vanity publisher to print your books? Some of you have.
What is a vanity publisher?
So a vanity publisher, you just pay them a fee, and they'll give you so many books, and that's it. Usually they'll say they'll send out a press release. Did they do that for you? And I'm sure everyone else got a press release. What happened with that press release?
Absolutely nothing.
Right.
First of all, I rewrote it because when they interviewed me the woman was calling from New York that did the press release, but when I got a copy of it, I don't know, I rewrote it.
Yeah,
I don't think anything happened with it.
no. Yeah, what they do is they charge you exorbitant amount of money to print up your books. And then they'll say, oh, we'll market it. And the marketing is this press release. And usually they have no idea what your book is about. And they write something crazy. And like you said, you had to rewrite it. And my guy that wrote the Fat Chance book, he had the same problem. He said, you know, I got this press release back, and it was terrible. It's like they had no clue what my book was about. So, yeah, so that's going to happen if you go to a vanity publisher. And I've heard this story over and over again. If you want to use them to get your book printed, you should just figure, well, that's what I'm paying for, because you're not going to get marketing. No way. But I'll give an example. There's this one vanity publisher, to remain nameless, who constantly sends press releases to the paper. They must publish a lot of authors, local authors' books. So I get them all the time, and a lot of times the books look good. I want to write about it. And there's a lady's name on the press release that she's the marketing person. I have called her and left messages and never get a response. So it really kind of galls me. It's like, I know they charge these people an arm and a leg to print their books and promise them marketing. Now the media actually wants to write a story and they're not responding. And I feel bad for the person who wrote the book, because here's an opportunity to get their book written about, and it's not going to happen. And sometimes, I mean, I'm sort of nice and I care about people, so a lot of times I'll try to find the person myself. Like I'll go on Facebook, or I'll try to find them in Google and some way to get in touch with them. A lot of times it doesn't, I can't, because like on Facebook, if you're not somebody's friend and you send them a message, it usually goes into their other file, and most people don't check that other file, so I don't hear back. So yeah, when you use one of those places, if you do, don't just take it for granted that they're going to help you. Do your own press release. Really, it's worth it to spend the extra money and make sure that your stuff gets out there. So yeah, I mean, it's upsetting because you feel like I paid for something, they promised me, and there's like really no recourse. So I highly recommend just going it alone when it comes to the marketing. You could hire a marketing company, but I don't know that you're going to get any better results by doing that. If you have a good release and a good hook and you send it out through the main distribution channels, then I think you're going to have as good of a shot as, say, some marketing person that you hired that's basically going to just do the same thing. So yeah, so anyway, that's the end of this portion, and I know that you want me to come back for some Q&A, and I'm just like chomping at the bit because I know they probably have questions. So I will talk to you in a few minutes, and thank you again for having me.